by force. When ecological systems begin to decline, it's going to force human population to make that change whether they want to. Global warming is probably the more urgent threat to that change. Certainly the extractions of resources have been continuing, and the oil peak is going to mandate some change. But if human awareness about where we set in the world and the direction we're taking, if that awareness happens before then, it's ultimately going to be the best to happen. The world will survive. The earth will survive. Humans are just one species, and one very destructive species. Many folks are saying, well, how do we get Euro-Americans to become native? And not saying we want them to be Indian by any means, but being able to put themselves in connection with the earth again. To look at how non-native peoples can conceive ceremony, conceive rituals that again tie them spiritually to a place. The absence of a spiritual relationship to a land renders the land without a soul, with something that can be commodified, can be abused, can be destroyed, because it has no relationship to humans. Humans have their heaven. The Euro-American concept, the Christian concept of heaven is quite different. Upon death you're going to leave. And the forecasting of a time of Armageddon, that the earth is going to end anyway, and we will be saved, salvation will happen, and we'll continue a better life somewhere else, renders Euro-Americans no obligation to protecting where you live today. It's a spiritual, it's a religious concept that is very destructive. Whereas indigenous peoples understand the earth has a soul, the earth is alive and well, and through human responsibility to administer to the earth, to pray to the earth, and to heal the earth and to protect the earth as a foundation of who we are, builds that stronger identity with the earth and the preservation of the earth. In the U.S., in the Americas, we contend that God is an illegal alien. It is foreign to this country. There's no concept of a God, an almighty. Gradually through Christianization, we hear Native peoples talk about, a sole creator or a singular God. And some of them may have some concepts of creation, of a creator, but only in the context of a worldview that's tied to the earth. A worldview of Euro-Americans that the earth is only a temporary living space, that someday they're going to move on to this gated community, somewhere in the heavens, provides no incentive to protect, where we live. And it's a very destructive concept. It's a very destructive spiritual understanding. And I think that in terms of what differs from, what makes a Native paradigm different from a Euro-American paradigm, that is at the crux. That whole concept of a spiritual understanding. How do we create that change in the dominant society at a level where massive change will happen in a very short period of time, is what we're confronted with today. Native peoples, we say, well, first of all, it's not our responsibility to change non-native thinking. They're going to have to change themselves. But understanding quite well, we're floating on this island along with everybody else. And Seventh Generation Fund, we work with Native communities throughout the United States, Central and South America. And we work with grassroots communities, more traditionally based communities. And up to this point, the tendency of sharing information with the dominant society has been minimal. I think the reach of the dominant society to reach and grab and take has been the history, from resource extractions, from appropriations of whatever cultural material that they might want. That we have a history of that of reaching in and taking. In Lakota country, they refer to white people as the one that grabs the fat. And that's been the history of relationships. So the tendency, I think, of Native peoples to hold on to what we have, to be able to first, recover. Recover from a Holocaust that has been continuous, that has been systematic, planned and engineered, for 500 years. To recover from that, or providing the space for people to recover, is the first level. I don't think we stand solidly on our feet in that regard yet, in Indigenous peoples all over the world. United Airlines says, put your own mask on first before you can help somebody. Likewise, we're kind of still putting our own mask on, and trying to figure out how to do that. The responsibility of either Native peoples assuming that responsibility themselves, or the non-Native world looking to us for that responsibility, is sort of unfair. The world got screwed up not by our making, and folks will say, well, let's look to Native peoples or Indigenous peoples for some answers. Ideally, there are some philosophies, there are some understandings, much of which I'm sure you've talked to many communities about, that earth-centeredness, that connection with place and understandings offer some suggestion. Just the reverence, the reciprocity, that is so ingrained in traditions. If you take something, you give back. Either in prayer or a physically, a payment of sort back to the earth, giving back. The understanding that we have an obligation to administer to certain places for healing purposes, not for our own purposes, but for the earth itself, or for that area, and understanding that those spiritual places are not human specific, they're sacred to all of creation, and that they have to be protected and they have to be administered for their systems to function, on a broader scale. Those types of understandings, I think, if they're embraced in an honest and thoughtful way, can offer some suggestions on how change can happen. But the urgency that we're talking about, we're talking a massive spiritual change. To be able to affect people at the scale that is needed at this stage of the game is a massive awakening, a spiritual understanding of how to live on Earth, to be able to make that change on a broader scale. And without sounding evangelical here, but I think that has to happen, and that message needs to get out there in a large way in a short period of time. That spiritual understanding, or that change, has to be rooted in spiritual belief systems, or it doesn't happen. Most of American society is so intellectually occupied, so academically centered, that their thought process is removed, their emotions are removed, their very soul is removed from any connection to a spirit. You know,